Welcome to the Oliver Ellsworth Homestead. Please join me as we travel in time with Oliver and Abigail Ellsworth. In 1772, Oliver married Abigail Wolcott of East Windsor, his second cousin. They moved into their new home when it was completed in 1783. Although Oliver spent much of his time away from his family, he maintained a close relationship with his wife and children through his many letters home. Oliver and Abigail's home was built in the 4-over-4 room style. It is here, in this house, that they lived and raised their family. Did you know that Oliver was a drafter of the Constitution, and that he suggested the term the United States to identify the government under the authority of the Constitution? He was also one of the senators from Connecticut when the first government was organized in New York City. In 1796, Oliver was appointed by President George Washington as the third Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Oliver also held many important positions here in Connecticut during his lifetime. Here we are in the 1825 kitchen, which was part of the addition done by Martin, Oliver and Abigail's third son, in the 1820s. He and his wife Sophia moved here in 1818 when Abigail passed away. Here you can see a variety of cooking tools and household items from the 18th and 19th centuries. This corner cupboard belonged to Oliver's mother, Jemima, and came here from the South Windsor home of her second husband, Captain Ebenezer Grant. We surmise he felt it should be in the home of her heirs, and it now has a place here in the homestead. It serves to display Oliver and Abigail's pink and white lusterware, as well as Martin and Sophia's white and gold monogram china. Here we are in the cupboard parlor, one of the homestead's original rooms, which was reduced in size as part of one of the additions. The mirror in this room is an original Ellsworth piece. After the Constitutional Convention concluded, Oliver planted 13 elm trees, one for each state, and called his estate Elmwood. Unfortunately, all the trees succumbed to Dutch elm disease. About 30 years ago, a local Boy Scout troop replaced 6 trees in an effort to bring the total back to 13. In 2017, we were able to identify those 6 trees, and we added 7 more saplings donated by the Nature Conservancy. Let's continue into the north parlor or dining room of Elmwood. Although this is an original room of the house, nothing in this room is original to the Ellsworth family. But here is where Oliver and his family would have had their meals. We suspect they would have had a simple breakfast of cornmeal mush, a dinner at lunchtime of 2 courses featuring meat pies, pancakes, some side dishes, and desserts. And supper, more like a snack of dinner leftovers. This desk was a gift to the homestead from the old State House. It had been a schoolmaster's desk used at the old State House during the Revolutionary War. The paint color you see is a good match to the original color during Oliver and Abigail's time here. Here is where guests would enter the center hall of Elmwood. Oliver taught school and held court here. Clients or students waiting to see him would sit in Windsor settees, similar to these reproductions. You can see how the staircase was repositioned into the wall as part of Oliver's 1789 addition. We'll see the rooms that were added as part of that addition as we move through the house. We will be able to get an idea of how the configuration of the rooms upstairs changed as well. The front door is original to the house. The bar is called an Indian bar, but we know there were no threats from Indians when Oliver and Abigail lived here. Interestingly, the wood of the bar was taken from a house near Bantam, Connecticut, owned by Elijah Horton, a member of the Boston Tea Party. Let's see Oliver's office, where he may have held court or conducted classes. We are in the third original downstairs room. It was most likely a keeping room when the house was built. Other than the kitchen, this would have been the warmest part of the house, as it was opposite the kitchen, which we will see later. It would have served as a cozy area to write letters, read, or do small household tasks. Believe it or not, families might even have slept in their keeping room during cold nights. The desk, owned by Oliver's grandfather, was donated to the homestead by an Ellsworth descendant in the 1990s. The portrait above the desk is a pastel drawing by James Sharples and was created during Oliver's time as Chief Justice of the U.S. The centerpiece of the room is the bust sculptured by Hezekiah Auger. This is actually a plaster copy of the original marble bust that resides in the Supreme Court building in the U.S. Capitol, and there is another copy at DAR National Headquarters in Washington, D.C. Here we are in the South Parlor, part of the addition of 1789. It is really the highlight of Elmwood because it contains some of Oliver and Abigail's furniture, specifically the sofa, chairs, and mahogany card table. These items are listed in the inventory of Oliver's belongings. The focal point of this room is the large painting to Oliver and Abigail. The original, painted by Ralph Earl, was donated by the Ellsworth family in 1903 to the Hartford Athenaeum. This hand-painted reproduction at the homestead was created by Frank Bruckman at the request of the Drumhill chapter. It was in this room that Nabby, Oliver and Abigail's oldest daughter, married Ezekiel Williams in October 1794. It must have been a lovely ceremony. This is the homestead's original kitchen and the last of the original rooms downstairs. The spinning wheel was found in the attic, but we are unaware of the original owner. Abigail would not have spun her own fabrics, as she had the resources and ability to shop for manufactured goods and imported fabrics in town. Did you know that the uniform George Washington wore for his first inauguration was made at the woolen factory in Hartford? We do know that George Washington, during a tour of New England soon after his election, visited Elmwood because of this entry in his diary. October 21st, 1789. By promise, I was to have breakfast with Mr. Ellsworth in Windsor on my way to Springfield, but the morning proved very wet, and the rain not ceasing until 10 o'clock. I did not set out till half after the hour. I called, however, and stayed an hour. Let's make our way upstairs and visit the bedrooms and learn how the Connecticut daughters acquired Elmwood. Here we can try to imagine what the original 4/4 house design looked like. There would have been 4 bedrooms upstairs, but Oliver's 1789 addition made it necessary to redesign the floor plan here. Say hello to Martin Ellsworth and his wife Sophia Wolcott. When Abigail died in 1818, this became their home. Sophia was the distant cousin of Abigail's. She and Martin married in 1807. Martin ran a successful merchant business in Windsor. He also served in the state militia and rose to the rank of major during the War of 1812. We're here in Oliver's bedroom, and this is the bed where he died November 26, 1807. What is fascinating is that this room has no source of heat, so keeping warm depended upon a bed warmer, window shutters, and a curtain around the bed. This is the only other original Ellsworth mirror. Perhaps the most interesting part of this room is the wallpaper. It is original, purchased in about 1801 from the Zachariah Mills in Hartford. It suffered water damage, so in the 1980s, Connecticut Daughters decided to have it restored. Experts came and removed it strip by strip, repaired any damage, and reaffixed the strips to the walls. Here is what a young lady's bedchambers might look like. The furniture is not original, but the bed is an Ellsworth family piece and was donated to Elmwood by a descendant. Throughout a young lady's life, she would gather items for her trousseau in preparation for her wedding. The linen sheets and quilted spread have the initials SW for Sophia Wolcott, Martin Ellsworth's wife. Perhaps they were part of her trousseau. We are now in the largest bedchambers in Elmwood. It was part of the 1789 addition and is directly over the south parlor with a lovely view of the south lawn. The design on the beautiful crewel bed hangings is historically accurate. 2 Connecticut DAR chapters handmade this set, which took them 7 years to complete. The portraits are of Mr. and Mrs. Holton and their child. Mrs. Holton was a cousin of Abigail's. Lastly, we can see what a child's bedroom may have looked like at Elmwood. This original room was cut back to allow for the addition of the large bedroom we just visited. The trundle bed is original and was found in the attic. Please meet Harriet Sterling Ellsworth, who was born June 16, 1865. She was the great-granddaughter of Oliver Ellsworth and Noah Webster. This touching portrait was painted shortly before she passed away in October 1868, when she was just 3 years old. This small gallery is mostly dedicated to the time when the homestead was transferred to CTDAR. In the early 1900s, when the last Ellsworth occupant of the homestead passed away, one of the descendants suggested that ownership might pass to the Connecticut DAR. As none of the 116 living descendants chose to live here, the property was deeded to the Connecticut Daughters to maintain as a museum to preserve the legacy of Oliver Ellsworth under the direction of the Ellsworth Memorial Association. The official transfer of ownership occurred at a marvelous celebration on October 8, 1903, and was one of the most important events in the history of the Connecticut DAR. Please consider a visit to Elmwood once it has reopened for tours. Connecticut DAR is fortunate to own this beautiful property, which was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1970 and declared a National Historic Landmark in 1989. Come to visit and find out more about Oliver, his family, and his home. To quote Oliver, "I have visited several countries, and I like my own the best. I have been in all the states of the Union, and Connecticut is the best state. Windsor is the pleasantest town in the state of Connecticut, and I have the pleasantest place in Windsor. I am content, perfectly content, to die on the banks of the Connecticut River."